Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
The big stories tonight. Did the Supreme Court just make it harder, holding top officials to account? That is a question after the tribunal stood by its ruling on Vice President Sara Duterte's case, a powerful note as well on future impeachment complaints.
And the Foreign Affairs Department and Malacanang step in as the word war between the Chinese embassy and Filipino officials intensify. They are ruling out expulsion or any sanction for Beijing's diplomats.
And President Bongbong Marcos has lost weight, as shown in a recent video released by the palace. In that clip, he also has a message to those who want him dead.
The Supreme Court en banc denied with finality the motion for reconsideration filed by the House of Representatives.
This decision has weakened this constitutional weapon of impeachment to exact accountability from the public officials.
With a little over a week before a new impeachment complaint can be filed against Vice President Sara Duterte, the Supreme Court has ruled with finality on her first impeachment case. The verdict? Case closed. Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos with tonight's big story.
The first attempt to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte is dead. The Supreme Court en banc today unanimously denied with finality the bid by the House of Representatives to revive it.
The Supreme Court en banc denied with finality the motion for reconsideration filed by the House of Representatives. It affirmed that the fourth impeachment complaint transmitted to the Senate on February 5, 2025 was already barred by Article 11, Section 3, Subsection 5 of the Constitution.
3 impeachment complaints were filed against Duterte in December 2024, all linked to the alleged misuse of confidential funds. But it was the fourth one, endorsed by more than one-third of the members of the House of Representatives, which was transmitted to the Senate as the articles of impeachment. On February 5, 2025, Duterte became the first VP in history to be impeached over graft, corruption, and an alleged assassination plot against President Bongbong Marcos. Her defense team, however, filed a petition before the SC arguing that the first 3 complaints counted as prior impeachment proceedings, triggering the constitutional ban on multiple cases in a year. The tribunal agreed and ruled on July 25, 2025 that the articles of impeachment against Duterte were unconstitutional. The lower chamber then sought to overturn the decision. The House argued that the first 3 complaints have been archived anyway, but the High Court, in reaffirming its ruling, said that the prior complaints before the fourth one were deemed initiated. That's because they were not placed in the House order of business within the required 10 session days. This SC resolution is immediately executory, with no further pleadings allowed. The court, however, said that a fresh impeachment complaint against Duterte could be filed beginning February 6, 2026, when the 1-year ban expires. Reactions to the recent SC ruling were swift.
So tanggap po, pero malungkot po ang pagtanggap ng desisyon ng ating Korte Suprema. But we have to respect and honor the decision of the highest tribunal. May tinatawag na judicial overreach, pagmamalabis ang ating Korte Suprema, amounting to judicial interventionism.
Yes.
Okay naman, judicial intrusion, hindi lang po judicial activism. Medyo nagmalabis po, nasobrahan po ang desisyon ng Korte Suprema dito po sa Duterte case. This decision has weakened. This decision has emasculated this constitutional weapon of impeachment to exact accountability from the public officials. So the higher the position, the higher the service. Dapat ganun po eh. So, sabi ni Cabras Ople, is that a constitutional declaration is a powerful tool. Now, this tool has been dulled by this, by this decision of the Supreme Court.
In a statement, the defense team of Vice President Duterte expressed their appreciation for the Supreme Court's decision. With the first impeachment case closed, the Vice President's camp also called on everyone to move on and shift focus on the country's problems. For Duterte ally Senator Amy Marcos, the High Tribunal's ruling is, quote, a victory for the rule of law and a reminder that no matter how powerful are the people behind the impeachment of VP Sara, no one is above the Constitution. As for the team that pushed for Duterte's ouster, Justice Committee Chairperson Congresswoman Jervil Ruiz summed up the House's sentiment.
Only means that the first impeachment complaint is indeed dead already. Well, it's quite frustrating, no? Just like what I hear from the rest of the 215. But nonetheless, we have to follow the decision of the Supreme Court.
For Mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Leila de Lima, the fight is not over. The setback, she said, was based on technicality. She also hinted at another complaint against the Vice President, saying the ruling is not a vindication for her. And for one of the 1987 Constitution's framers, Congress has other options through Livestream.
The House has to craft new rules to conform with this new rules set forth by the Supreme Court. I think that's the only way that we can do. Now, if you follow the suggestion of the Ami, pwede rin po yan, no? Assert there's the exclusive power to try all impeachment cases. Kaya na ba mag-create ng constitutional crisis po sa ating bansa. Yun lang po. But it will make difficult, alam niyo po, it will make difficult all impeachment cases to move forward in our country.
Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Now in other news, Senate President pro tempore Ping Lacson has announced the removal of Senator Amy Marcos as chairperson of the Committee on Foreign Relations. No reason was given for the move, only that Senator Erwin Tulfo will replace the presidential sister. Marcos will instead head the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes, which is currently chaired by Senator Kiko Pangilinan. All these changes will be discussed in the upper chamber's plenary session next week. Before this, Senate President Tito Soto said he is considering replacing Marcos after she declined to sign the resolution condemning the Chinese embassy's continued criticism of Filipino officials. Marcos even filed a resolution urging for temperance and not to hinder free speech or the stance of officials standing for the country's sovereignty. She said such statements could affect bilateral relations, particularly matters concerning maritime rights. Marcos added it should be the Department of Foreign Affairs that should be at the forefront of diplomacy, and that engagement with other countries should not involve insulting and disrespectful words. Meanwhile, the DFA urged officials to rethink declaring foreign diplomatic personnel like ambassadors as persona non grata. The department says this is an act of last resort and should be carefully decided. And Malacanang agrees. Recall that some senators broached the idea of having Chinese diplomats either replaced or declared persona non grata for their critique of Filipino officials sharing their sentiments on the West Philippine Sea.
It also carries tremendous implications moving forward, such as reciprocal action or other countermeasures in other areas, which is why it should not be made lightly and decided only with careful and clear thought and preparedness for how it will shape the Philippines' strategic interests moving forward.
And most Filipinos still view China as the greatest threat on the threat to the Philippines. This is based on the latest Okta research survey. In detail, about 79% of adult Filipinos see China as the greatest threat, compared to only 74% in July. Also based on these results, only 13% of adult Filipinos say that the Philippines should trust China, 60% disagree, and 26% are undecided. Visayas registered the largest drop in trust at negative 11 percentage points, while the Davao region posted the highest trust at 31%. But it's interesting to note that the Caraga region reported zero trust in China. The survey was conducted from December 3 to 11, 2025, from 1,200 respondents of legal age with a 3% margin of error.
All right, we discussed this and more with Professor Ranjit Rai, founder and president of Okta Research. Good evening and welcome to The Big Story.
Yeah, good evening, ladies. Thank you for inviting Okta Research to your show. Good evening to our televiewers also.
So many issues, but let's begin with China. To what would you attribute the marked increase in negative sentiment by the populace toward China?
Well, I think it's the rising tension, the continuing tensions in the West Philippine Sea. I will, of course, clarify a little bit, says what you said. Actually, when you look at the data over the last 2 years, trust has actually gone down. It was as high as 90. Now it's 60%. No, their trust has not really gone up. It started to improve early part of this year, but it stopped improving after the second quarter. So what does it all say? It's clear still that there's a lot of the majority of our countrymen distrust China, but that distrust has gone down, and much has moved to ambivalence. This is an important aspect of the report. Okay, but on the second finding, which is focused on threat perception, it's very clear for majority of Filipinos, and this particular probe has been stable all throughout the last few quarters, that most Filipinos continue to see China as the greatest threat to the country. It's very little has changed as far as this public perception is concerned. So there are two findings here. It's not still majority, but has gone down. No?
Okay.
And perception of threat, which continues, which is a serious perception, because you can it's firm, it's stable, and not really changing. It's around 79%.
But how would you explain that? In a way, they're polar, well, not exactly polar opposites, but the distrust is not increasing, but they view China as a major threat. So how do we explain that?
Well, the questions are two. These are two different questions. I think it's very clear that for many Filipinos, because of the last few months where there was very little activity happening in the West Philippine Sea by way of controversy, and at the same time, we're all focused on the corruption issues domestically. So there seemed to have a rise in ambivalence. The concern for China remains strong, says. So they're still consistent with one another. There was just some changes as far as movement of people from distrust to ambivalence. But when you ask about trust, it is still there's still less. Only 13% of our own respondents say they trust China. So it's still very firm. The trust is low, threat perception is high, and while I was stating all of this, the distinction is crucial. I think that threat perception is something that needs to be. Yeah.
Could it also be affected by the leaders or legislators who lean toward being pro-China? Could they affect the way the populace perceives China?
Well, there are lots of factors. The problem with our survey is that we did not ask why. But what seems to be clear is that perception is shaped by information. And there's a lot of information and disinformation out there. As regards our senators, the firm stance was only settled just a few days ago. This is a survey that was conducted December 3 to 11 in the fourth quarter of 2025. So we see that these numbers will actually deteriorate even more because this was a big issue. The crisis created by quarreling between Philippine and Chinese officials would probably further deteriorate these distrust and threat ratings.
Okay, so would you say, Professor, that social media and so-called propaganda on social media, what goes viral, does this play a big role in how the survey results come out eventually?
I'll take my hat off as Okta spokesperson and as a political scientist and answer your question, Sean, with a yes. Because a lot of misinformation is out there, and that definitely affects how people perceive the issue. But still, majority of the Filipinos see West Philippine Sea as a serious issue. Majority of Filipinos think, number one, that we have to assert our rights in the West Philippine Sea, but we have to assert it, again, a majority in our surveys also say that we have to use the first step, which is to exhaust all diplomatic means. So it's clear to the everyday Filipino, the West Philippine Sea is ours. Number two, it's a serious issue and we need to assert our rights there. And number three, that diplomacy is the first step. You might want to guess the second step, no? Because they also gave three measures that the government should prioritize. The first measure is to exhaust all diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict in that area. And number two, to actually expand military presence, which the government is trying to do, no, in those areas, whether it's naval or through presence. And third, to modernize our armed forces. So the response, the sentiments of our countrymen with regards to how the government should respond to this continuing crisis is very clear. And I think that's where the government takes off, because its current response in the West Philippines is largely supported by the population.
Well, in relation to that also, Professor, back in September, you had this survey where Filipinos, or 80% of Filipinos, say they support the government's transparency efforts, exposing the actions of China, especially in the West Philippine Sea. And younger Filipinos actually compose majority of that. So what does that tell you as a researcher? What's driving this interest from the younger generation?
I think it's everything they see in social media and the news. You know, for many Filipinos, at least in our FGDs, many of them feel very bad, no, about how our Coast Guard, our fishermen are being treated in these areas. The continuing harassment being experienced by our countrymen. Some even say in the FGDs, they don't like seeing our flag, getting wet when, our boats are water cannon. So all of this not only breeds distrust, it feeds into the rising perception that China is a threat to national security as far as the Philippines is concerned. And that particular approach is very hard to, to mitigate. It's very hard to get sentiments down unless there's really significant, a solution to the problem, which I feel at this point is still far away. So how does it affect Philippine-China relations? I think even the Chinese embassy is looking at this data and seeing it. What needs to happen offhand in the short run is to de-escalate this tension that has just occurred over the last few weeks, and see if calm and diplomacy will get both sides talking and start this long process of trying to find a solution to the rising tension in the West Philippine Sea. I'd like to emphasize, yeah, of course, I'm being optimistic there, but the one point that I want to emphasize is that the tension in the West Philippine Sea is not it's not the end all and be all of our relationship with China. We have to understand we have a trade relationship with China. It's an important trading partner, and at some level, this is not should not be the definition of that relationship. So I guess that's where the DFA comes in. They see the big picture and they see that while we disdain the behavior of the embassy and its officials, that the big picture should not be lost on us. That we have to move forward with more constructive, and progressive relationship with China.
Maybe the social media word war will change after seeing the results of your survey. But also you did have some interesting data on self-rated hunger and self-rated poverty, which, like a huge drop in self-rated poverty, 19 percentage points down from the third quarter to the fourth quarter. At the same time, it's ironic because our third quarter GDP 4%, fourth quarter 3%, and yet we see that drop. How do you make sense of that as a political scientist, Dr. Ranjan?
Yeah, it's really hard. We had to recheck our data because it was the largest drop in self-rated poverty in a quarter. Looking back at all our surveys on this particular probe, which is self-rated poverty, it went down 17% percentage points, and to illustrate that, it was 14 million, a little over 14 million families in the third quarter of 2025. It went down to a little over 9.4 9.5 million families in the fourth quarter of 2025. More than 4 million families felt better in terms of poverty than in the third quarter 2025. So what could possibly be the reason? It could be myriad, no? One would be government programs for poverty alleviation have kicked in, improvements in employment during the fourth quarter, but they weren't as significant as projected. The economy still grew. It didn't reach its, it didn't reach its targets, but it still grew. Economy still expanded, albeit I think a little over 3%, which is not very impressive. But all of this put together may have created, I think, stabilizing food prices. No, you have to understand, inflation went down to less than 2%, 1.8, I think, and that stabilization of food prices was a very big, may have been a very big factor in creating these kinds of survey results. So it wasn't just food poverty. It wasn't just poverty, self-rated poverty. It was self-rated food poverty went down 19 percentage points. 5 million families said that they had better quality food in the fourth quarter. So maybe Christmas kaya yan or all of these things.
Okay, if we could shift topics and wear your political analyst hat once again, your thoughts on the Supreme Court affirming its ruling on VP Duterte's impeachment?
Well, one thing's for sure. No, I'm not a lawyer by training, but I've observed this particular, issue for some time. While the Supreme Court has affirmed its former decision, what seems to be problematic in my view is, the new strictures that they've imposed on the process of impeaching, top leaders of government. Impeachable officers, as stated in our Constitution, the President, the Vice President, members of the Commission, the Supreme Court. It's now much harder to hold these people accountable. That's the reality. Now, as regards to the particular case of VP Duterte, we have to accept that's the Supreme Court's position. But, the reality is the decision of the courts didn't just talk about the merits of the case. No, they basically suggested new strictures that make impeachment, holding our own leaders accountable, much, much harder today. And that's a reality. Now, the House, if it's progressive, will probably have to rethink its rules, to go to accommodate these new rulings. But the reality is, it's made impeachment less potent as a tool for holding our officials accountable. That's my own, not off that, it's my position, yeah.
Okay, but the question also is, Professor, do you think there is judicial overreach on the part of the Supreme Court with this decision? Because as we all know, under the Constitution, the House of Representatives has the exclusive right to initiate all impeachment complaints. In fact, one of the constitutional framers, Attorney Rene Sarmiento, told our sister program Storycon that he thinks there is judicial interference. What are your thoughts?
I'm not a lawyer by training, but as regards to their basic assessment of the impeachment process against the VP Duterte, I have to agree, with their decision. But with the additional strictures, I think there is, I think it's only fair to say that there is actually overreach, no? Some would argue activism, and some would argue overreach, because the new strictures make it so much harder to hold accountable leaders. Now, we're thinking about Sara Duterte, we're thinking about PBBM, but in the future, what if we have really bad presidents and vice presidents, or for that matter, bad Supreme Court chief justices or associate justices? How can we now hold them accountable? It's much, much harder now to actually undertake this process given these new strictures. But then let's see how the House will respond to it, yeah.
All right, we thank you for your insights. That was Professor Ranjit Rai, founder and president of Octa Research.
We're taking a very quick break, but right after that, government says it is beefing up manhunt operations against former Congressman Zaldico, who seems to be moving freely around Europe. The big story returns in a bit. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the big story. Fugitive Saldi Ko is now believed to have traveled or could still be in Sweden. Ko earlier reported hiding in a gated community in Lisbon, Portugal, supposedly signed his petition to the Supreme Court before a notary public in Stockholm, Sweden last January 15. Ko asked the Supreme Court to issue a temporary restraining order and or writ of preliminary injunction. That's against the resolution of Ombudsman Boying Remulla, which recommended the filing of charges against him. Ko and several others were charged with graft over anomalous flood control projects in Oriental Mindoro. Supreme Court spokesperson Camille Ting confirmed they received Ko's petition, which will be placed on the SC's agenda. DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla said he will be coordinating with Sweden to search for Ko. Remulla added he will be asking the Interpol to have Zaldi Ko's foreign passports red flagged.
In fact, I am leaving tonight. I'm gonna be making some coordination calls. So maybe you'll hear from me in the next 2 weeks kung ano mangyayari. He's using a foreign passport. So nakakaikot siya ng malaya ron. But now we're gonna go harder na i-red flag namin yung foreign passport niya. So kinukuha namin yung kopya ng passport and then we're gonna put it through Interpol na para hindi na siya makalabas ng Portugal. At kung lumabas man, mahuli natin.
Now on to another story. The legal team of Rodrigo Duterte has filed notice before the International Criminal Court's appeals chamber. That's to challenge the pre-trial chamber's January 26 ruling declaring the former Philippine president fit to stand trial. Duterte's camp argued that the court erred in refusing to consider medical reports from a neurologist and neuropsychologist that point to deteriorating health and cognitive impairment. They claim this amounted to a denial of Duterte's right to a fair hearing and renewed their call for his immediate interim release. The ICC has scheduled Digong's confirmation of charges hearing from February 23 to 27, assuring that his medical needs will be addressed during the proceedings. Vice President Sara Duterte, who is currently in The Hague, said her father has no plans to change his legal team despite the setback.
Gusto mo ba palitan at hindi ka pa satisfied? Sabi niya, hindi palitan. Pero meron siyang mga instructions na ibinigay kabahin sa legal team. So, hindi ko nasabihin kung ano yung mga instructions dahil ano naman na yun, hindi na mahalaga.
Now back here at home, Malacanang has called on the National Bureau of Investigation to look into the release of a fake medical document on the health of President Marcos. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president's health should not be subject of fake news. Yesterday, the fake medical report claimed that Marcos supposedly has severe sigmoid diverticulitis that required urgent surgery. It also claimed that the president's diverticulitis was due to drug use. St. Luke's Medical Center, which had its logo on the medical document, belied its authenticity. In a statement, the hospital said medical results are released only to the patient through authorized and official hospital channels. The palace also released a video of Marcos to counter speculations on his health. It showed the president, who visibly lost some weight, playing with his pet dog, Oreo. The chief executive also assured that he remains healthy and in control of government.
Wala na naman akong nararamdaman eh. Sinasabi magpahinga ka. Medyo na-bored ako nung weekend. Ito yung mga inaantay na ako mamatay. Huwag kayong excited. Nasumobra na naman ang pagka-excited din. Andito pa ako. I'm running the government. We're doing everything that needs to be done.
In another development, the Philippine economic growth slowed to its weakest pace in 14 years, excluding the pandemic. The economy grew by just 4.4% last year, way below the government's revised 5.5% to 6.5% target. This is the slowest full-year expansion since 2011, though it contracted 9.5% in 2020 during the COVID crisis. Meanwhile, growth in the fourth quarter eased further to 3%, pulling down the full year figure. This was also weaker than the revised 3.9% growth posted in the third quarter. The weak economic performance was partially caused by the flood control scandal, which affected investor and consumer confidence and slowed down public spending. Malacanang said that President Marcos was briefed about the figures and acknowledged the effects of corruption probes, climate-related disruptions, and global uncertainties. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro added that reforms are underway to boost investments, speed up infrastructure, and support key sectors. And with growth losing momentum, questions are now turning to monetary policy and whether more rate cuts are needed to support the economy. Here's what BPI lead economist June Neri told our sister program, Money Talks.
What kind of a GDP outcome then would justify, say, a 50 basis point cut on February 19th?
We wouldn't really recommend that because it could look like they're panicking. But for the whole of this year, they could do as much as 50 basis points, Kathy. Again, watching closely whether inflation will remain within target because we really think that growth will continue to disappoint. So this coming May, when the first quarter numbers are reported, most likely than not, Kathy, we will be seeing still a disappointing print. No? Probably not as bad as the third and fourth quarters of 2025, but still well below the potential of the Philippines.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. Still ahead is a project that helps mothers earn more for their families while also sustaining whole communities. We learn more about Eco Nanay when we return. Keep it here on One News.
for staying with us here on The Big Story. Across the country, many Filipino mothers are finding ways to support their families despite limited resources and opportunities. For some, that means turning skills into livelihood and waste into something useful. Iko Nanay is a grassroots initiative that empowers women, mostly mothers, through skills training and sustainable livelihood. Here, practical and eco-friendly products are created to generate income and build confidence. Supported by the Alagang Kapatid Foundation Incorporated, the project helps families move toward financial stability, one product and one community at a time. Let's put the spotlight on sustainable programs and inclusive initiatives. Welcome to Sustainability. And joining us tonight are two Eco-Nanays, Josephine Villamil and Marilu Garduque, along with Benchis Silvestre, Executive Director of Alagang Kapatid Foundation Incorporated. Welcome to The Big Story sa inyong tatlo. Magandang gabi.
Magandang gabi po.
How old na is this Eco-Nanay project?
We're turning 5 years old ngayong taon na to. It was born during the pandemic. And purposely, gaya nung introduction kanina, we wanted to provide families an alternative source of income kasi maraming kalalakihan nang nawala ng trabaho during the pandemic. So the mothers and the women had to step
Fill
up.
in.
Yeah. So, ayun. And they had to, we needed women, we needed sewers to transform our used clothing into something more that we could upcycle into something more, something that we could use for our own operations. So yung mga used clothing namin, pinatahi namin into eco bags.
Yun ang unang project.
That was the first original
Balita
project.
ko, itong si Malu, nag-volunteer, hindi naman marunong magtahi.
Nagsinungaling siya sa isang pare. Nagpatawag yung parish priest nila
sige,
ng
mo.
mga kababaihan. Ikaw nga.
Bali, pandemic time po. So, nag-ano sila ng sinong gustong magnahe. So, yung isang nanay po doon, kapitbahay namin, inano po nila, gusto mo ba malumagtay? Sabi ko, sige ma'am, pwede naman po ako, Nay. Nanay Helen po yun. Tapos sabi ko, Nay, nakalimutan ko na po umapak ng paano nga ba?
Pero hindi niyo po talaga alam.
Yes, ma'am. Hindi po.
Pero kasi kailangan mo talaga.
Ma'am. Kasi alahan trabaho. Nawalan ako ng work. And then, yung time during pandemic, 3 of my family, isang taon lang po yun, sunod-sunod sila. So, depression po talaga yung
Tinatanong ko siya, you worked in a gasoline station.
Yes, ma'am. Dinaanan mo namin kanina.
Oo nga.
Nagkaroon po ako ng nostalgia.
Pump attendant siya noon.
Taga-morning side high.
Ngayon, kamusta ang kita, ang trabaho, ang ginagawa mo?
I-compare po nung may regular work ako, malayo po. Pero yung po kasi, mahal ko na po yung mga kasama ko, yung ambience. Kahit na medyo, yung ganun pa rin.
Challenging.
Opo,
Challenging.
yung kita. Mabuti nga tumutulong sila Ma'am Menchi para magbenta kami. So pag may benta, meron po kaming
share.
May share po kami. Yun po ang kwan doon.
Pakita nyo nga yung
Siya
gawa
yung,
nyo.
actually, si Malu was yung kauna. Siya yung, bagaman siya yung nagsabing, hindi naman siya marunong manahe. Pero siya ang kauna-unahang nakapag-develop nitong upcycled bag na to. So, signature bag ni Malu yung ganito.
Siya yung creative director.
Siya
So, yun
yun.
ang idea niya.
Correct.
Meron na siyang tatak na
Yes.
Malu touch.
Yan.
Cute. Actually,
So,
super okay ito, matibay.
Eto.
So, Liban, aside from the eco bags that we use for our own relief goods, to contain our relief goods,
So silang naggagawa
yun
nun?
ang original project
Okay.
for the 4 parishes na yun. Pero sabi namin, hindi pwede kasi silang kumita kung yun lang. So they had to develop other products. Kagaya nitong kakikayan na suot-suot ko rin
Ang ganda.
ngayon.
Meron tayong rack dito sa harap.
Josephine,
Yes po.
ikaw bang gumagawa nitong mga o kasamahan ninyo?
Kapitbahay ko po. Kasi nung time nung namatay, nagtatahi po kasi siya sa Taytay Rizal. Kasama niya yung tita niya. Nung namatay ang tita niya because of cancer, siya na lang mag-isa. So, umuwi siya ulit sa lugar namin. Then, hindi kasi siya lumalabas ng bahay. Eh, nakikita ko, masyado siya mabuting-ting. Sabi ko sa kanya, igawa mo ko ng hikaw. Yes. Nung una ayaw niya kasi nahihiya siya, baka daw hindi niya kaya. Sabi ko, itry mo nang itry hanggang nung umpisa, pinakita niya sa akin. Sabi ko, maganda yan, kahit hindi pa masyadong maganda. Sabi ko, maganda yan, kaya mo yan. So,
nabebenta naman?
Yes, ma'am.
May mga ito yung mga lilip tsaka mga sinturera.
Yes.
Talaga
yung mga
tira-tira. Tira-tira nung
So,
materials.
anong balak ninyo this year? The 5th year na.
Okay. Yes, 5th year. So hopefully, gusto nga namin mag-upskill din naman sila. Siyempre, para din lumaki yung kita nila. So, one time, certain Ses Drilon, sabi niya sa akin, kailangan ko mag-declutter. Correct. So, pero sino pwede mag-benefit from it? And that's why sabi, when you said, gusto ko sana kababaihan, syempre naalala ko yung mga eco-nanays natin. So,
sana maraming bumili ng mga gamit ko.
Yes.
Magaganda naman.
Yes.
It will go to a good cause.
Yes.
So, anong gagawin?
So, we're
The
having
proceeds
a bazaar
okay.
Monday and Tuesday. Itong parating na Lunes at Martes. Yung Martes ay talagang open to the public so they can come here sa Launchpad, Sheridan Corner, Reliance Streets sa Mandaluyong. And you can buy mga pre-loved. Hindi nga pre-loved, sabi mo, iba-love mo pa din.
I'm just parting with it.
Galing si Ses mag-let go.
Ayan. So, pero hindi pa nga daw siya maka-let go sa iba. So, some pre-loved items ni Ses, ni Sean, who were still open. And yung iba pang mga anchors natin from News 5.
Si Yang nagbigay na.
Yes, Cheryl Cosim nagbigay na rin. Jester De Los Santos nagbigay. So, meron pang lalaki, meron pang babae. So, from clothes, shoes,
right.
hikay
But what
stuff.
will we do with the proceeds?
Ano bang kailangan ninyo?
Kailangan niyo?
Sa ngayon po kasi, kailangan namin ng yung parang embroidery machine yan. Yung ganito.
Pamborda.
Kasi para yung mga dinidesign namin sa bag, hindi na kami bumibili. Kasi hindi na, gusto namin kasi presentable. Hindi siya puro
dinikit lang na galing sa ibang...
And hopefully, gusto nila parang pwede mag-personalize. Pwede mong ilagay
Pwede rin
pangalan.
namin i-business sa iba.
Nanay Josephine, sino po yung design ng patch na yan?
Ito yung mother ko. Mother ko.
Talaga?
Oo. Kasi idol ko yung mother kong manahi. Natuto siyang manahi, tinatastas niya daw nung bata pa siya. Pag gusto niya yung tatahiin niya, tatastasin niya, then ipapattern niya yon, tatahiin niya ng bago.
So, doon siya natuto.
Yes. Sobrang idol ko sa kanya, nag-aaral ako manahi. Kaso, hindi talaga para sa akin yung mananahi.
Ano ngayon ang ano mo? Ano ang role
ako po
mo?
yung tagagulo sa kanila.
Siya ang bastonera. Siya yung QC, quality control.
Yun yung sinasabi nila sa akin, ikaw kaya yung manahi. Hindi nga ako marunong manahi, kaya inuutos ko sa inyo. Alam mo kung paano siya. Pero hindi ko siya kayang gawin.
Pero why not? Kasi si Malu nga natuto, di ba?
Alam niya yung strength.
May kanya-kanyang papel talaga sila sa grupo. And they're just isang parokya si Malu, isang parokya si Pen, and we have 2 others. So kanya-kanya may mga produkto sila. And again, sa Lunes and sa Martes, makikita ninyo yung iba't ibang mga gawa nila.
So kasama rin yung
kasama
mga...
rin.
Kasama, yes.
Miss Menchi, magkano ba yung isang embroidery machine? Para at least alam natin yung goal natin.
Nasa mga?
Yung single, siguro may mga, yung iba 50. Medyo 50.
50,000.
Oo, yung nakikita ko po, hindi pa po siya
Parang may balak i-donate si Sean.
Hindi pa po siya komplikado yun yung
kailangan namin
single
yung
thread
muna,
lang po siya.
yung pang-basic muna.
Yung basic. Kasi po, nilalagyan na yun ng napo-program na yung plus drive lang, saksak mo. Then,
tapos mag-isa na siya.
Opo, single thread lang po yun, 1 color lang yung thread.
Pero malaking tulong talaga yun. If
Tapos
ever.
hindi ba may
personalize
fashion
po.
show?
Yes.
Fashion
Sige,
show? For their anniversary.
In time for their fifth anniversary in July. So may binabalak talaga kami na irarampa ninyo yung mga produkto
Sana.
nila.
Game kami dyan.
Yan. So July pa naman yun. Pero in time for that, gusto nga namin medyo nag-level up na lalo yung mga produkto nila.
Hope we can find them a mentor also to guide in design, di ba?
Parang project run.
Pinapanawagan natin yan.
Ilan sila? Ilan ang mga eco-nanays?
In total, mga 20 sila sa 4 na parokya na yon. Pero meron kasing mga home-based pa. Meron yun nga, parang si Pen, hindi siya yung mananahi. Pero siya yung, anong tawag niyo doon yung pagkasalansan?
Nagtataytay ng mga basahang bilog.
Yung mga basahang bilog.
Sasalansan.
Pag sasalansan mo yung mga retaso.
Para madaling itahi.
Tay-tay pala ang tawag doon. So merong mga ganun ang papel. Tas iba yung magtatahi sa kanya.
Hindi po lahat nakapasok sa tahian. Kasi hindi namin kayang ilagay sila sa isang room. Kaya ang gusto ng Paris Priest namin, hindi lang kami, kailangan nakakalat sa community na natutulungan ng aming parokya.
At saka yung mga iba, hindi na sila kailangan umalis ng bahay para nababantayan ng baby or sino man, di ba?
And who knows, baka may mga nanay po tayong nanonood who would also like to join and become an eco-nanay. How can they do that, Ms. Menchi?
May ipagmamalaki namin, I think meron ng 2 LGU yung nag-adapt ng konsepto na ipunit yung mga used clothing in their communities at tahiin into eco bags or whatever, upcycle them. So makipag-ugnayan po kayo sa amin, nandyan lang ang ating Facebook page, ang ating social media, Alagang Kapatid Foundation Inc. Message niyo lang kami ng inyong mga thoughts and tignan natin what we can do together.
May question ako, Ms. Menchi. Available ba bumili ng mga products sa mga eco-nanays online?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Meron
Where
po
should they go?
FB page, Sibol, St. Francis Xavier Parish, Sowing Livelihood. Kaya lang, hindi pa siya masyadong
Maraming followers.
Walang followers masyado.
So kasama yan.
Gawa-gawa ko lang kasi yun. Hindi pa ako marunong.
Kasama yan doon sa mga i-develop pa natin. Yes.
Well, imagine from the pandemic, naging ganito, magkaka-fashion show. Rarampa rin kayo.
Pag may nagkasya sa amin.
Malu naman magtatahin.
For pets, di ba?
Ay,
Ang inisip ko nga, sana gawin tong collar. Sabi ko, kasya ba to sa pusa ko? Parang medyo
Oo nga, pwede.
Nilakihan siya ng collar.
May idea na kayo.
Tama.
Pet lovers ang gumagawa niyan, may sa pusa.
Yes, sa
Oh,
pusa.
ayan. Okay.
Dito, nakita nyo ba? May
Ang dami naming
pusa.
beauties.
Ayan, may idea na.
May idea na ako.
Nadagdagan pa.
Sabihin ko
Aso ni Pawi ang magmomodel.
Pwede din sa tao, kay Andre.
At saka yung mga TV5 cats natin, ang dami nating pusa po dyan sa labas.
Ayan, tama. Thank you.
Maraming salamat sa pagkakataon na ang ating mga eco-nanay. Alam mo yon, yung ito lang na sila ay nag-guest. Ito ay malaking bagay din for us na sila ay marunong natututong mag-market, di ba, kumausap ng tao at i-market yung kanilang mga gawa. So thank you very much sa pagkakataon na to.
So
At
again,
nakikilala.
reminder.
Oh,
About
again.
Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday, yung Lunes, priority natin empleyado for Monday. Then Tuesday, ilalabas namin ito doon sa isa sa mga pwesto sa launchpad in between yung samyupsalan at yung Japanese restaurant. Doon namin siya ilalagay. Then again, please come on Tuesday, mga kapatid. Iba-ibang mga pre-loved items at yung iba nga ay love pa nila. At ang lahat ng ito will benefit our eco-nanay.
10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
All right. Thank you so
Salamat.
much.
Maraming salamat po.
Josephine and
Malu.
Marlon, gabi lang.
Marlon, gabi na eh.
Marlon. Eco-nanay.
Okay. Well, we thank once again Josephine Villamil and Marilu Garduque of Eco-Nanay and Menchi Silvestre, of course, of Alagang Kapatid Foundation Incorporated.
Okay, so we hope to see you Monday and
Tuesday, 10 to 5.
10 to 5. Dito lang po yan sa TV5 Media Center. What are some of the items you're gonna be? They should watch out
Nice
for.
one. Some even have the label on it still.
Mga signature items.
Meron.
Hindi
Oo,
natin
diba?
yung mga items ni Ses, ang dami niyang dineclutter, ang gaganda pa.
Yeah.
Tsaka si Cheryl din. Sila yung nauna.
So not just clothes, diba? Even
Yes.
home items.
Home items, shoes, bags.
We should tell the guys to also donate para it's not just limited to girls, diba? Running shoes daw, running shoes. Ahem. Okay, and that will do it for us here on The Big Story this last Thursday of January. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. And then when we see you again next week, February na.
Kapatid, we are One News all sides all the time. Have a good night.
But do stick around. We have a lot coming up. We have play-by-play with Andre and Cheska. Guys, kamusta?
Good evening.
Hi.
Sige, that's gonna be Monday, Tuesday, no, Ma'am Menchi?
Yes.
Monday, Tuesday.
Inaantay ang donation mo.
Anong oras again?
10 a.m. to 5
10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Abangan nyo po yan, yung Bazaar. Alagang Kapatid Foundation. And thank you sa Eco Nanay, empowering mothers through upcycling. Thank you din kay Ma'am Marilu and Ma'am Josephine. Great show, sustainability.
Will you guys be donating anything? Ayan na, ano na kayo, pledge na kayo.